Okay, so I guess I am breaking a few rules by making this video in this time frame, because this is some pretty old news. The article that this is from came out almost a week ago, and I'm also breaking yet another rule because the team and the player in question are actually going to be playing in a few hours from now. So, without further ado, we're talking today about the Vancouver Canucks and some potential targets of theirs heading into this offseason. Now, the main focus of this video is a guy that you already know because you read the title and you saw the thumbnail, but we are talking today about Tampa Bay Lightning center Ross Colton. And the reason we're bringing him up is because Elliot Friedman on the Recent 32 Thoughts podcast says that he thinks the Canucks will look to add another center. He wonders about Colton. Looking at Tampa's cap situation, it could be difficult to keep him around. He's 26 years old as an RFA with arbitration rights. Will Tampa try to keep him, or will teams line up to try to acquire him? Now, this is one of the better conversations, I think, that we could be having about the Vancouver Canucks, mostly because when it comes to their desire for a middle six center heading into this offseason, we've always kind of known that it was going to be there. Ever since the departure of Bo Horvat, you had other guys rotating around there in the center position. Of course, JT, of course, Petey. When you play JT at center, he's actually a lot better, go figure. But throughout the past few weeks, especially towards the end of the year, you saw some other guys swapping around in there as third-line C. You had guys like Sheldon Dries and Nils Oman and Jack Studnicka all rotating around there, and no disrespect to any of those guys, but if you have these players as third-line caliber centers, or even second-line caliber centers in some cases, depending on if JT plays on the wing, it's probably not the best way to go about things. Ever since Bo Horvat was traded away, the Canucks did not really have that same center depth as they had had in the past. Now that's okay, that's more than fine. Bo Horvat was scoring at a 50-goal pace for Vancouver, Elias Pettersson got 100 points, JT Miller got 99 points last year, so having one of these guys as your third-line guy definitely wasn't the best way to deploy all of them and use their talents. But when it comes to the future, we had already made a video talking about Ivan Barbashev of the Vegas Golden Knights, talking about, I believe it was the Rick Dhaliwal quote that said that he may be a target for Vancouver because he's also a fairly mid-aged center. He's 27 years old and he can play all forward positions. But when it comes to this player right here, Ross Colton, he's a guy that I think is probably going to be a bit cheaper, and he's a guy that I kind of like more. Ross Colton is 26 years old, born on September 11th, 1996, 6 feet 194 as a left-handed center, signed till the end of the season making 1.125 AAV. As we had said, he is an RFA, so he'll expire and he'll have the arbitration rights available to him, but this season he had 32 points in 81 games played, and he actually had 2 points in Game 1 against the Toronto Maple Leafs 2 nights ago. We'll see what he's able to do today as Game 2 kicks off in Toronto later on, but this was some sort of a step down in terms of point production because last year he had 20 goals and 39 total points in 79 games played with the same Lightning team. Colton was a guy that was easy to cheer for because he was a University of Vermont guy. He had spent 2 seasons in the NCAA. He was a marinating draft pick by the Tampa Bay Lightning who had eventually made his way over to the Syracuse Crunch system before getting the call-up in 2020-2021. There, he ended up winning a Stanley Cup championship with the team, getting 6 points in 23 games in their postseason run, and last season he had 9 points in 23 games as well as they made it to the finals. But Ross Colton overall has made himself known as just a really solid hockey player that can do the right things and make the right plays. He's not too special. Not the best point scorer, not the fastest guy, not the biggest guy, not the heaviest shot, but he just kind of does it all, and he's a pretty solid player when it comes to just being the all-around versatile option. DailyFaceoff.com currently has him listed as third-line left wing alongside Nick Paul and Tanner Jeannot. Whether or not he's going to play, we don't know, but if Ross Colton was brought onto a Vancouver squad and put into a third-line position, he'll probably have a tad more responsibility at his disposal, and I honestly think he's sort of up for the task. Like, realistically, Ross Colton on the Tampa Bay Lightning is less utilized and probably less important than Ross Colton on the Vancouver Canucks, just considering the difference in talent between both of these teams combined. But I definitely do think that Colton would have success here should he come over to Vancouver and play alongside of a Mikheyev or something on the third line. If you have a top 6 with Petey, Miller, Beauvillier, I guess you could say he's going to be here still, yeah. Kuzmenko, that's 4. Throw Besser in there just because, and then somebody else. If you have Ilya Mikheyev and let's say Vasily Podkolzin or somebody else on that third line with Colton, I think it could actually be a pretty good fit. Even if you wanted to take some of the guys that are sort of lower level players, like Niels Oman, for example. That guy plays really well, especially on the perimeter, that if you have a guy like Oman setting it up to Colton, it's honestly a fit that I think is pretty alright. It's just, with Colton being an RFA, and with there being arbitration rights, you're going to have to make a trade for this guy. Meanwhile, Ivan Barbashev is a UFA. He's the other guy that we had talked about, and if the Vegas Golden Knights don't re-sign him, he'll just be a free agent and be free to sign anywhere. The Canucks wouldn't have to give up any assets to get them. So for Colton, you have to really make sure you're making the right move, and you have to be super confident that it's going to work, because shelling out any assets for a guy like this could be seen as a potential detriment if Colton doesn't live up to expectations. So you kind of have to be confident here if you're Alvin, if you're Rutherford, but I guess these playoffs right here are a pretty good stage to show off what it is that Colton is capable of. But of course, with there being Vancouver Canuck fans' eyes on this player, there are probably going to be fans of other teams checking out what Colton is about and seeing, hey, could this guy be a third-line center or a second-line center even for our team? Could we use this type of a guy? And if we can, where is the line? Where do we bid up to, and what's the max that we're able to pay in comparison to other teams? And that's an interesting conversation too, because it's not like you're trading for a guy whose rights are going to expire and he's going to go to UFA status. No, you're going to have his rights, you're going to be able to keep him around and still negotiate with him, even if you're not able to get things done right away. He's an RFA, so there's a little bit of added value there, but at the same time, I definitely do kind of question what the price would be, because Colton, I mean, he is 26, so he's not like he's too old. He's kind of in the prime of his career right now. I don't think he's really going to get any better as he continues playing, but if you max out as a 30, 40-ish point middle six caliber guy, what is that worth, firstly, on the dollar amount? Secondly, what is that worth on the trade market? Because the Vancouver Canucks do have quite a few young guys that we're probably going to want to see try to make an impact on the team sooner rather than later. So where do you put your attention when it comes to making a trade for Colton? Do you try to not include any picks? Because I feel like that's probably what a lot of Canucks fans would want. No draft picks anymore, please. But instead, you might have to touch on, a roster forward, because if you have some guy coming in, you have some guy going out at the same time. Or do you say, hey, the Vancouver Canucks have so few guys that are available at center anyway that they could just do this properly and not really feel bad about it if they don't trade away a forward in return? And additionally, what is the price that you re-sign Colton to? He was making $1 million last season, so we'll see how much he's going to ask for heading into the next few years. But for now, I have a little bit of a task for y'all. Check out Toronto vs. Tampa Game 2 and check out what Ross Colton is about. Take a look at his game, see what you like, see what you don't like, and if you're able to say, hey, that's a player that I think could benefit the Vancouver Canucks, then let me know in the comments all your thoughts about that and whether or not you would think it's worth it for the Canucks to pursue this type of a player. We also have Vegas and Winnipeg doing their thing, so you can keep your eyes on Ivan Barbashev as well, and whether or not you could see that being a little bit more valuable, especially since he'll be a UFA, and the Canucks could just try to sign him wherever rather than making a trade. But either way, thoughts in the comment section below about the Canucks and their hunt for a third-line center. Ross Colton, Ivan Barbashev, let me know your opinions in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.